All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, my crowd size is real. Yeah, you know, I don't even know how to get on AI, so you don't need to worry about that. But you know, it's funny, Tony. It's saying that 0 people are watching. Do you see that up there in the in our little counter that tells you how many people are watching? Does yours say 0?
Give me a second. Yeah, mine says 329.
Oh, well, there you go. And that's how AI works, everybody. Thank you. From 0 to 3. We are on live 2 hours every day, and then we break things out if you miss anything in separate videos so that you're able to take in content, you know, at your convenience. That's kind of the beauty of YouTube, which is our home platform. We are here, but then we are across all major podcast platforms as an audio offering as well. I've got so much to tell you about. We have a date for our end of summer meetup, although it's quite preliminary, meaning I don't have any graphics on it, but I'll give you who are here early, the early word on it. The Olympics, of course I watch the Olympics. I'm a patriot, everyone. You're damn straight. We have a post-mortem on that. But most importantly, the sage, bottom of the hour, Gary Dietrich, the political ninja who graced KGO for so many years. We came out of a radio station called KGO, a giant talk radio station in the San Francisco Bay Area. And Gary was a regular. Well, when we came over here, we tried to bring as much of that success and so many of those voices with us, and Gary's one of them. So he'll be bottom of the hour. By the way, you know, now he's the political ninja for the CBS television stations and also for iHeart Radio. So he's doing fine. He's quite lovely to spend some time with us. Yes, I will get to Trump and the state of the election, which is close. I mean, the election is close and the date of the election is close. I mean, meaning there's not much time left. What is it, 88 days, something like that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the time to mid-course correct is getting tighter and tighter, and that's what is being demanded of Trump. We'll talk to Gary about that, among other things. Hey, can I do something right away that I want to do regularly, and that is recognize the people who join us and support us through PayPal. You know, I talk about Patreon, and Patreon is a huge way in which you can support the show, but there are 2 basic ways that on a monthly basis this show exists. And I'm kind of doing this before everybody filters in, and give me just 90 seconds or 2 minutes on this, and then I promise you I won't even mention it again. But I just want to give the people who are on PayPal such a great shout out and a bit of love, because you guys matter. And PayPal and Patreon is how we can plan payroll and we can get everybody paid. You know, we came over here with our group, and so we've got a lot to take care of. But Brian V for $25 a month, and Janet F for $25 a month, and Delette, whose name you see often in our chat. Big shout out to all of you. I mean,
big shout out.
Yeah.
Big shout out.
Okay. And Charles and Karen S and Laureen for $25 a month. I mean, come on. That really matters to us. This is all through PayPal. Leona B.
Big shout out.
With a $10 contribution every month. $50 a month from Walter D.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. I mean, it really does help us meet payroll. Dale B. and Athonia C. How cool a name is Athonia?
Big shout out.
That's a really cool name. Mm-hmm.
Rory's a pretty cool name.
Big shout out.
Thank you, Rory. Isadora, Danny, Ivan, Geraldine, $50 a month.
Big
and
shout
a lot
out.
of these that I just mentioned are in the 30s and 20s. It just all matters, whatever you contribute. I mention this because this is how we sustain this offering to you. So thank you, everybody. Again, I think Tony's scrolling at the bottom of the screen, themarkthompsonshow.com. There are links to PayPal and Patreon at that site. There is what it looks like. You can contribute. You just click on one of the hot links. And you can also find the click-throughs under all our videos to PayPal and Patreon. So that's a great way to help us. And, of course, all of you who are in the Super Chat and Super Sticker, wow, that helps us too. MT is the bomb, says Steve. Well, look at that. Best pipes in the business. You bring the truth the best as an Uber driver. I tell peeps about you. Your old KGO stomping ground. Some peeps have heard of you, but not the non-news junkies. Oh, that's great.
Nice.
I remember when I got into thank you, Steve Valdez. Big shout out to you. Thank you.
Big shout out.
I remember when I got into an Uber in San Francisco, and it was a woman. And so I'm always looking at the demographic. And she recognized my voice or something. She said, I listen to you every day on KGO. And it was really kind of cool. Like, I don't know why that moment stood out to me, just because he mentions Uber. And and I'm always looking at the demographic, you know, like, is it an older person? Is it a younger person? So she was, I would say, maybe 37 years old, Uber driver, black woman, lived in the city, I think. So it was interesting, you know what I mean, specifics on her. And I remember I was really thrilled because when you're on these things, you just don't know how it's all landing. So, yeah, thank you, Delette. Really cool. You're
Big
such a
great
supporter. Now, I will get to everything going on because there is a lot going on. There's panic, really. I mean, I'll use the word panic in the Trump universe, and I'll get to all of that. As I say, Gary Dietrich's coming in bottom of the hour. Super sticker from Wes. Thank you, Wes. Big supporter, regular supporter. Really love you, Wes Theory. And now, Trevor Starr in Hollywood. Big shout out to Trevor. Now, Trevor, for those who don't know, quickly, he is someone who used to live in Concord, which is in the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area. Now he's in Hollywood. He sends us a lot of the drops that you'll hear. So when we're working out new drops, and I'll say, hey, I like this drop from Trump or whatever, he'll send
My
it.
beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians.
Yeah.
I'm a Christian.
Yeah,
I
like
love
that one.
you.
Thank you. Major announcement today, he says, though. Timing to be determined by your host, Mark Thompson. Ready when you are, Mark. Trevor, if you have an announcement, please make it now so that we don't forget to get to it. And then I need to get to the show. So I am ready to receive the Trevor Starr in Hollywood announcement. And then I want to get into some Olympics and politics. And we have True Crime Corner coming up. Courtney will be along. And here it is. Oh, sorry, I did that at the same time you did. Oh, and now I did it again. Go ahead, you do it. Whoever's doing it. Trevor Starr in Hollywood.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Don't even play with me on this one. A major announcement. Hollywood Star Productions has officially begun pre-production on the first film from AKA Films. Wow. Congratulations, sir. More later. I don't know. I just hope, I fervently hope, with every cell of my being, Trevor Starr in Hollywood, you're such a rich contributor to this show that your first film from AKA Films is not a porno film. That's all I ask. Yeah, I'm sorry to even mention it, but I hate to have given you this. But if it is a porno film, then let it be the best porno film ever. Yeah, there you go. All right. Gordon Andrews with a 5-spot. Congrats and applause to monthly PayPal donors. Yeah, the PayPal donors, we love you. And that was just a sliver of them. Stan Pollock, CPA, my favorite CPA. Happy August. Big shout out. Thank you for the $10 super sticker. And I do want to mention, and just make a note of this, our end of the month meetup will be, this is the end of summer meetup, really. This is it. Is the 29th of this month, August 2-9. And the start time will be 6:30 Pacific time. The 29th, and It's a 6:30 p.m. start. So that is the word on that. Welcome all. Thank you for being here. I do want to, just because it was quite a spectacular finish, I want to spend a second on the Olympics if I can.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, Patriots, I know you may or may not have been rooting for individual stories in the Olympics, may or may not have been rooting for even America within the Olympics. But there was some great stuff in the Olympics. It was a rebirth of enthusiasm for the Olympics. First of all, the ratings were incredible. Not that that's important, but it is. I mean, we don't care, right? We don't have a piece of NBC or whatever, but it is an indication of the public's appetite for it, right? And apparently, one of the things they did is they flooded the different streaming services with your ability to watch any number of events in real time. This is not what they usually do. They usually delay so that they are then hitting prime time and various times during the broadcast day, to use kind of a legacy term, that allow them to monetize it more, right? In this case, they gave you the Olympics straight up. You want to watch them at 3 a.m., whatever event, they'll give it to you. And that I thought was really smart. And Steph Curry is the GOAT in every way. What an amazing finish to that game.
More people watched that basketball game. Talk about ratings. I mean, millions and millions of people were watching.
Yeah, there he is. He hit 4 threes at the end of that game?
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4. It's crazy. With, 2 guys in his face, unbelievable. And look, the U.S. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim.
I heard they were all having trouble with threes at the beginning because the court is a different size. It's shorter. And so they were overshooting. So finally they got it figured out. So,
oh, that's wild. Mm-hmm. Well, they played some close games. I mean, it was not by any means clear. They also played some games in which they dominated. But it was impressive. And, to see all of those guys on the court, there they are with their gold medals. And they beat France for the gold medal. And that, of course, because it is in France, was something that animated the crowd. Jose de Jesus says, it's because they added breakdancing to the Olympics that they were so popular. Yeah, well, we talked about that last week. They call it breaking now. They don't call it breakdancing, as you're aware. And it was funky, man. It was a little weird, the breaking, but we did a little thing on it last week. This is interesting. I didn't know that. There is the breaking. Thank you, Tony. And what was the controversy, Kim, about the one breaker? She was not.
It was her awkward, weird moves. It wasn't really, it was kind of a joke.
I see.
Her name was Raygun. Her nickname. She came in and did these kind of, basic moves. It wasn't very Olympic.
Yeah. It's the je ne sais quoi, says, I don't know. I mean, if any place for je ne sais quoi, it would be Paris. I know that she was vilified. She was definitely, but a lot of, I saw one post from one of the judges, Nigel, from So You Think You Can Dance, which is a show on Fox. And he said, I love seeing breaking in the Olympics, but any one of even the worst competitors in So You Think You Can Dance would be better than any of these medalists, which is kind of weird. Snoop is the reason for the increased views. Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Santi. So anyway,
awesome. He's very amusing. I mean, he would pull you in if you weren't really interested. You see a clip of Snoop, looking at table tennis or whatever it is, and immediately you want to see more.
Yeah. R. Herrera says, Mark, it has always been called breaking, FYI. Thank you. I didn't know that. I mean, I just know that people call it break dancing. So I thought the breaking was kind of cool, says Doug. Speaking of cool, there is Snoop wearing the glasses. So the other thing that happened was the streaming saved the Olympics. I think there may be some truth to that, says Jose de Jesus. I think there really might be. They really changed their strategy in getting you connected to the events. And I do believe streaming made a huge, huge difference, especially because of all the different streaming platforms. I mean, there were so many. You were able to, you could watch archery, wrestling, discus throw, whatever it might be. Now, the other quick thing just on the American side was the Americans came like 2 inches away from at least going to overtime in that women's basketball game. You know, they won the gold, but there was a last second, literally, shot that had it landed from 3-point range, it would have sent things to overtime, but it didn't. It was a 2-point shot, and so the Americans win by 1 point. And there they are, the American women taking down the gold. Quite an impressive run for them.
Have you seen the pictures of the medals a few days later?
No. What does that look like?
So there are people that are winners that are complaining because they get these shiny, amazing medals, and they're Olympic medals, and they're supposed to stand the test of time. And then after wearing it, maybe it gets a little, you're sweaty or whatever. You lend it to a friend, and they put it on. Maybe it gets wet, and it turns like it looks like an old penny that's been around for 100 years. I mean, really doesn't look good at all. It's got
This is their new hope.
marks all over it.
It's not
the
for
surface
real,
is
huh?
all dull. Yeah, it's not good.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It's got a piece of the Eiffel Tower in it.
Yeah, it was a great idea. See, look,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all like dulled and brown on the other side.
Yeah, that's wild. Well, maybe it'll I don't know. I'm sure there's some handout or website where they'll get you, the care and cleaning of your medal. Quickly show them the finale, Tony, because we don't have a lot of time, but show them a couple of pictures from the finale. The finale, by the way, Tony is brilliant, as you know, hustling images and hustling,
Thanks, Tony.
He's a great technical ninja here, so love having him here. Also, and there is the closing ceremony. And again, the opening ceremony took place around Paris. It was expansive. The scale of it was immense. The closing ceremony took place in the stadium, and that had a magic of its own. And you can see all the athletes filing in, and what was a spectacular sound, light, musical presentation, the fireworks toward the end, and it was, truly the immensity and complexity and brilliance artistically. I don't mean to be too effusive in my praise. Effusive would be a ding word, but I do want you to know I thought it was really worth going back and looking at. And this is just a couple of stories. By the way, that you're seeing right now is a guy, I guess he's a major composer in France. He was playing the piano and performing as they raised the piano up vertically above the floor. I mean,
That's incredible.
It was insane. The whole thing was like that. Tom Cruise was great in the closing ceremony, says Randy. Yeah, we'll get to Tom Cruise in a second. But again, to be able to conceive, execute with the kind of virtuosity and complexity that they had, it was so very impressive. And then, of course, all the athletes filing in. The opening and closing, thank you, Gordon. I believe the opening and closing of these Olympics was really in a class by itself. Mm-hmm. Best I've ever seen, says Dillette. I agree. So there it is, USA athletes jubilant. And go ahead, we've got to move on. So, yeah, piano upside down. So there was Tom Cruise at the end. Now, again, you could see Tom Cruise as like a gratuitous kind of add-on. Like, why do you have him there? Gratuitous is a ding word. But I would say that the way they used him was brilliant. It was anything but gratuitous. They actually played him into dropping him into the stadium, which is, of course, super dramatic and theatrical. Then he goes to Karen Bass, the mayor of L.A., and she's holding that Olympic flag. There it is, also with the Olympic Committee member there. And he got the Olympic flag from Bass, and now he takes it on his motorcycle, right, which is waiting for him, and he rides out of the stadium, does Cruise. And now with the flag, he's riding through Paris on that motorcycle. I mean, it was spectacular. And then he's riding through Paris on the motorcycle to a plane where he rides onto the plane. There he is going through the crowd. I mean, and it was real. I mean, it was the kind of exuberance that you were seeing from the crowd was tremendous. And he takes the flag, and the motorcycle, and he rides onto a plane, like one of those major transport carrier type planes, and it flies him. And obviously, this is all pre-recorded. This part's pre-recorded. That plane flies him ostensibly to, or supposedly to, Los Angeles, and in Los Angeles, he then turns the flag over to those waiting in L.A. because L.A. is where the 2028 games will be. And there you could see it on a sunny beach in Los Angeles. There was that celebration. You see the palm trees, and in a very L.A. way, there is Snoop again to, again, receive a lot of the magic and the mystique of the Olympics. And
Where
then it was
were
a
you?
Red Hot Chili Peppers performed.
Were you on the beach? Where were you in all this?
I was watching from my trailer.
Do you know?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
All right.
I didn't.
Okay.
But it was, I thought, a really great finish. They really stuck the landing, And so congratulations to everybody involved. I don't know how they produced that expansive, complex, and incredibly dynamic presentation, but they did. And it was an absolute tour de force. To use the French, it was a tour de force. So congratulations to the French and to all of those who went into it. They must have found a part of Santa Monica Beach that didn't have homeless people around. Yeah, there's the American spirit. Yeah,
They
there
probably
you go.
said,
Randy's
warn people, don't get in the water either. It's for fecal samples in the water.
That's true.
So,
What's that, Tony?
I believe the performance was in Long Beach, if I remember right.
Oh, good
Long
knowledge,
Beach, they did it.
Tony. With a
Because
a
I
bit
was
of
down
knowledge.
in Huntington yesterday, and it was a mess out in Huntington and Newport yesterday. So
Thanks, Tony.
all the beaches were a mess yesterday, just so you know.
Well, I mean, Snoop is LBC, isn't he, Tony?
Yeah, I believe so. I think
Yeah.
that's why
Thanks,
they did
Tony.
it.
Yeah, so Hollywood
But they
sign
did
looked
that
great.
very
Yeah,
well,
they
I saw
added the
some.
Olympic discs to the Hollywood sign. It was pretty great. Really, really cool. Well, anyway, that's hopefully you saw it, but if you didn't, that's kind of a little bit of a super reducto on. It was at Long Beach, says Janet. Yeah. There you go. And Dr. Dre said, "What up, Long Beach?" Yeah. I missed that part. Yeah. Long Beach crew, LBC, baby, pretty brown eyes. All right. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, all. It is a day in which we will get into some politics with Gary Dietrich coming up after Kim's news. I will get to the sudden mid-course correction that the Trump campaign feels they must do. We have True Crime Corner, which is the bottom of the second hour. I did want to mention one thing before I completely leave the Olympics. Did you see that Draymond Green and Aisha Curry were involved in this confrontation with Paris cops about trying to get through a certain area that they weren't allowing them through?
It sounded like a scary thing.
Yeah, I'm unclear as to exactly what happened. There's video, though, that shows Aisha Green and Steph Curry's mother, Sonia, speaking to a group of police officers. She was holding the couple's youngest son, was Aisha, while their daughter was also there walking around with a flag on her shoulders. They appeared to be trying to make it back to the car, but they were being prohibited. We're showing you the video now. Look, they won't let us go over there where we came from, Sonia told the officers while pointing toward a location away from the camera. They won't let the driver come here, and they won't let us go back there. So that's an uncomfortable moment. I don't know exactly what happened, but that was, who was right. But. And then there is the major twist on that Jordan Chiles bronze medal. As you know, the Olympian didn't get credit for something that she could have gotten credit for. And the idea was that they filed a protest, but that they didn't file the protest in time to give her legitimacy as a protest filing.
4 seconds. 4 seconds. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to say rules are rules, but Now they have time-stamped video evidence submitted by the USA Gymnastics crew. It shows that they first stated her request to file an inquiry at the inquiry table 47 seconds after the score is posted, followed by a second statement 55 seconds after the score was originally posted. The truth is then that she should then be allowed to keep her medal. Isn't that what's at issue here, Kim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's a 1 minute deadline. So what I'm saying is 47 seconds and 55 seconds is less than 1 minute.
So over the weekend, I saw the folks that reversed the decision said it was actually 1 minute and 4 seconds, so that she was 4 seconds late. And now other video says no. So what do? Now there are people calling for all three of the women in question to get a bronze medal. Just give the medal to everybody then, because you're yanking it from one, you're giving it to the other. It's too much turmoil.
Well, I don't know what should happen, but this thing where you just give it to everybody, that's not fair either. I mean, they really compete, and it's like if you raise enough of a stink and there's enough controversy or whatever, then everybody gets a medal. No. I mean, if they're wrong, they're wrong. But the problem is that the magic of the medal stand exists in a moment. So the beaming pride that you see in athletes who've worked so hard to achieve that medal stand, that is something that you see in a moment. And so when you delay and meet and submit video and then days pass and everything, in a way you've stolen the moment from these young athletes who have worked so hard. So I just feel again, it's inevitable, but it's kind of a bummer, So let me just get some quick headlines before Gary. Do you mind if I do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know there's stuff happening. There's a major movement in the Middle East, and we're expecting, we're expecting what I think could be an answer to Israel's hit in Iran. It's essentially, these are retaliatory strikes, and as usual, you can't even keep track of whose retaliation is a retaliation for what, but it's definitely heating up in that part of the world. I'd like to get a quick check of news from Kim and then the great Gary Dietrich, and we'll talk politics, we'll talk Trump campaign, and we'll talk about the latest poll numbers and the shifting nature of the presidential campaign in America. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod. Give us a thumbs up. Costs you nothing. Helps us immensely. Thanks for being here. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. As Mark mentioned moments ago, the United States is ramping up military presence in the Middle East. The Pentagon sending an additional aircraft carrier strike group to the region as tensions rise between Israel and Iran. The decision follows the assassinations of Hamas and Hezbollah leaders, with Iran now threatening retaliation against Israel at any time. Vice President Kamala Harris is thanking Governor Gavin Newsom for being an extraordinary leader, she says, for California. She made the comments in San Francisco yesterday, her first visit since launching her presidential campaign and her first fundraiser since naming Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. He wasn't there, but many of the state's top Democrats were at that sold-out event, which raised $12 million. There is a congressional task force asking federal agencies to provide detailed information about the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Lawmakers requested briefings from the Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, the FBI, and the Department of Justice to review ongoing investigations into that shooting no later than August 16th. Former President Trump's campaign says it was hacked. Some of its internal communications sent to Politico. Politico says it began getting emails from an anonymous account that had documents from inside Trump's organization. The campaign blamed foreign sources hostile to the United States and went on to cite a report by Microsoft Friday that said Iranian hackers sent phishing emails in June to a ranking member on a presidential campaign.
That was the last time that happened. I remember it with Hillary, remember?
Yeah.
They fish with, what's his name, Podesta. And they got into the entire Democratic, well, it was the entire Clinton campaign essentially laid out bare for everyone, you know, as they looked for a message and all that.
Some of those phishing emails are pretty good. I mean, you
Apparently.
find yourself almost, you're hovering over it and you're like, should I not? If you have to ask the question, should you? The answer is don't do it. Former President Trump is set to sit down for an interview with Elon Musk on the billionaire's X platform tonight. The interview will be hosted live on Trump's official account, 8 p.m. Eastern if you're interested. Meanwhile, Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are once again at odds over a debate schedule. Trump says there will be 3. Harris insists she only agreed to 1 so far, and that's on September 10th. There is a 3-year consumer inflation outlook that came out today, hit a record low in July. A survey by the New York Federal Reserve shows inflation expectations fell to just 2.3% last month, the lowest since the data collection began in 2013. Former President Trump is accusing the Harris campaign of using artificial intelligence to make it look like she's drawing large crowds at swing states rallies. In a weekend post on his Truth Social platform, Trump shared an image from Vice President Harris's rally at a Michigan airport saying, "Look, we caught her with a fake crowd. There was nobody there." The Harris campaign responded by posting a video of Harris arriving at the Detroit airport, showing a large crowd greeting the vice president and her running mate, Tim Walz, and other media outlets who have been there to film the event say, "It's all real, buddy."
I mean, I'll ask Gary about it, but it was such a stupid thing. He's gone after these, you know. Trump's genius is as a con man and a sales guy, but wow, he's really, really not a smart guy. I mean, he is delusional, and he is self-obsessed, and he is completely about feud and recriminatory type messaging. So I'll ask you, but this is just because it's so easily proven as real, right? There's so many, as you said, there's so many reporters there. There's so many everybody's got a cell phone camera. It's just absurd.
It's not a secret. I mean, everyone's there. You know, it's interesting when you talk about crowd size. We have this little box in the corner of our screen that shows how many people are viewing at one time. And sometimes it goes up and sometimes it goes down as people filter in and out. And it's easy to, you know, focus in on that number. But when you do that, you lose the message you're trying to impart. You lose what you're trying to say. It's not as passionate. It's not as good. And if that is on this small scale, then Trump trying to focus on the crowd size instead of the message, maybe that's a real problem for him.
Well, he sees it as popularity and ego. It's all for him, ego and popularity. So he doesn't really have, and I'll talk to Gary about this, and Gary, you're so great to be patient for a minute here, but I will get to it, because it's clearly a centerpiece of their issues with the Trump campaign. They are worried that this guy is all about ego, and so things like crowd size and things related to popularity, they really wound him, and they get him off message. So he does not talk about issues, because the issue to him is about how popular he is. I was talking to somebody who's a writer on SNL, and they said when he guested on SNL, all he talked about is how good the ratings were going to be. Didn't care about content, didn't care about sketches, didn't care about anything. Just said, you're going to be amazed by how good the ratings are going to be.
See, that's makes no sense to me, because if the content isn't there, if it's not good, then the ratings don't matter, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Speaking of the Olympics, once again, you mentioned them, but the United States is bringing home a total of 126 medals, 40 golds from the Paris Olympics. It's the most for Team USA since the 1984 Summer Olympic Games in Los Angeles. American women and women's teams combined for a total of 26 gold medals. It's the most ever in a single Olympics. And lastly, video of a bear in a California classroom is going viral. It shows this animal wandering around empty desks after eating earthquake kits made for students. Turns out they were full of granola bars. This all went down last week at a Kern County charter school in the mountains. The teacher says she left to make copies and returned to find the bear trying to get out. She called for help. That bear was safely removed at the end of the day.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, Bear is probably looking for RFK Jr. too.
Yeah, no, don't go to RFK Jr. He'll dump your dead body at a park.
Yeah.
This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It is a place to get a little heaven in your cup, Mark Thompson.
Yeah, I love it. I've got a
nice
special
big drink.
mug warmer here. And so my mug of coffee this morning is just absolutely still hot and gorgeous.
Nice.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. That's the El Gato espresso that I'm
Nice.
drinking. But I grind it for a French press, though, even though it's an espresso bean. So anyway.
Well, they have a huge selection of amazing teas and coffees just for you. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And enjoy the 10% exclusive Mark Thompson Show discount by typing in Mark T all together in the checkout code. You get your 10% discount, you get your coffee and your tea, and it's a very good day.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, Mark T, to get you 10% off at checkout.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, I want to get right to him. He is the political ninja who we used to visit with so regularly at KGO, and now he's come over. He now is the political ninja for the CBS television stations, also for iHeart Radio. Put it together for Gary Dietrich, everybody. What a time for Gary Dietrich. Man, this is an insane election. You had a major candidate pull back. You have the vice president stepping up, gaining the presumptive nomination. And then you have, correspondingly, this guy who looked like he was on a glide path to land in the White House, all of a sudden in a tailspin and desperate to find some kind of strategy to go after her because she is so popular. What can you tell us about what's happening in the Trump camp and how they are trying to manage their candidate, Gary Dietrich? Oh, you just dropped out. What happened, Tony? Nothing? After such a well-crafted question, I'm astounded by
What?
I don't. I thought I set that question perfectly, Tony, and now Gary dropped out.
He just went.
There he is. Oh, now he's sideways. Oh, there he is. Good. Wow.
Okay, you guys got me?
Yeah, we got you. We'll cut that part out for the video. But go ahead. Tell me what. But do tell me, how are they managing the situation with Trump on the GOP side?
Yeah. Hey, first off, I got a solution to this bronze medal thing, by the way, with with our dear gymnast. I just said we go all Seinfeld soup Nazi on him. After all the promo for LA last night, I said, look, either you deliver the bronze medal or no Snoop Dogg for you, period. That's the end of it. It's...
Yeah, Snoop is the crowd favorite, huh? Yeah.
I mean, we just got to go with leverage. I don't know if you saw the closing ceremony thing and the handoff to the U.S., and then it was just a giant beach party from there. I've never seen anything quite like that, but hey, if you got Snoop, use him. You know what I'm saying? That's all I guess.
It was brilliant. It was
about.
really brilliant. I thought the handoff was brilliant, too. It was. I really thought, I have no notes. I thought it was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you being the total quintessential L.A. Hollywood guy you are, Mark, that's right up your alley. I can see where you'd love that.
What? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the GOP, that's a compliment, bro.
Okay.
Trump and the GOP. All right, here's where we are right now. Let's take the snapshot today, okay? So here's where we are. A week from today, the DNC kicks off in Chicago, all right? We've had 2 solid weeks where there's absolutely no question about it. Call it a honeymoon, call it a love fest, call it what you want. Kamala Harris has been riding high. I mean, 30,000 foot high. And we know that. The Tim Walz, pick for VP, it's still getting some question marks, no question about it, even in our own party to some degree. But you know what? That seems to be settling down. They look like they're going to be okay. So first of all, on the D side, before I get to the R side, Mark, the big question mark for Kamala Harris, as you, I'm sure, are well aware, is twofold. Kamala, and this is coming across the spectrum, by the way, from the media. Kamala, we need two things from you. A, we need some airtime, okay? We need an interview. We need a presser. We need something from you live with us. Because so far, as you know, Mark, it has been nothing but scripted events, rallies, et cetera, et cetera. And the media is getting antsy about this. And there's even some on the left side of the media picture starting to call her out for that. And then the second thing is specific policies. I mean, the bottom line is, even on her own campaign webpage, up until at least yesterday, we'll check today, there is, the bio, the this or that, but there are no specific policy prescriptions or all the rest of that. So those two things are going to have to come, Mark, and they're going to have to come pretty quick, or there's going to start being some backlash on the love fest. So
let me just. I want to get to the Republicans, which is where we started, and you went right to Kamala Harris. Okay, that's fair, but I will push back on you on this for a second. And this is when I push back on you here. I'm kind of asking because this is sort of more your area than mine. So I hope you'll take it in that light. From where I sit, I go, I don't know. You know who wants her to sit down and talk to the media? The media wants that. And that's the echo chamber of the media talking about how come she's not done an interview with Lester Holt? How come she hasn't done, Lester Holt wants that interview. I don't hear that from the 30,000 people who are showing up to see her. I say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You can go a couple more weeks without sitting down. Literally, the people who care about you sitting down for an interview are all people who do interviews for a living, the media. So I would say ignore them, Kamala Harris, and you do your thing. Now, the second, and again, I want your impression on that, but the second thing I would say is you may be right about policy specifics and those that have to be at least laid out in some way on her website, et cetera. I'm not suggesting that she evade that, although, that said, the last guy who she's running against now, Donald Trump, isn't exactly a policy wonk. He calls everybody names, he rides on charisma, and he won the White House that way. So again, I love how we default for the Democrats. They have to have policies, they have to meet with the media, blah, blah, but they give the pass to Trump to just go ahead and make up funny nicknames for people. Now, go ahead.
Well, all right. As you know, Mark, I give passes to no one, including Donald Trump, the former president. So don't get me wrong here. I was just kind of getting the D stuff out of the way because I felt probably today we're going to spend more time on the R side of the ledger. So that having been said, here's the deal. I think it would behoove the vice president to go ahead and do these interviews. Here's why. Yes, they 10,000, 30,000, whatever the thousands are. And yes, Trump's absolutely wrong. None of these crowds have been AI'd to anybody's knowledge. Those people are the hardcore base. That's the ones that go to these rallies. What she needs to win over, of course, is that middle. And those people do want to know where she stands. How close is she going to be to President Biden on the whole Israel deal? Where is she going to be on the border issues? Where are we going on, on the economic policies? Give me some kind of specifics on what can you do better or different on this whole inflation thing. So those things are important. It's important not to negate those. All right. Now, politically, in terms of just strategy, you want to avoid that stuff as long as you can. Why? Because there's always a chance that you slip up, right? There's screw ups that happen on these interviews and in debates and all that. So her people, no doubt, think this is absolutely spectacular. Here's what I think is going to happen, Mark. This week is going to be kind of another placeholder week, and then we get into the DNC, which, just like the RNC, they are, by design, gargantuan love fest by the base. So that's going to happen next Monday. By a week from Thursday, she'll deliver her acceptance speech. And then truly, it's game on in a more traditional sense. So I would say really, Mark, it's 2 weeks from today, after the DNC, is when, if those questions haven't been answered about policy and interviews and giving the voters some kind of more substance, that's when that pressure is going to really build. All right. So that's the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz DNC picture. Now, for Trump, His people are desperate for him to get back on message. As you pointed out, he sort of specializes in, the mud wallowing. Put on the gloves. Let's go for it, right? Let's get inside the octagon and start slugging away. Right now, honestly, if you look at all the analysis from right and left center, what Donald Trump and his campaign did exceptionally well pre the Biden dropout was staying on message, and it was working for him. And the personal attacks were unnecessary, and they weren't needed, and they weren't wanted. I mean, they weren't wanted by his own campaign. They weren't wanted by the people who support him. They weren't wanted by, the people who are trying to figure out, that 5% in the middle that's going to sway this thing. So that's where you're starting to hear us out of legislators in Washington, in the House and the Senate. People in his own party said, look, Donald, enough already with all that stuff. Get back to the policies that we know we poll well on: immigration, the economy, even foreign policy areas, certain of them. Let's get back to those. That's what you're hearing.
It's interesting, and that makes total sense. And of course, you're right. The chorus of let's get back to the issues is deafening out of everybody. In fact, it's not just people like Kevin McCarthy who, came on this morning, I think on Fox News or on CNN or something, and said he's got to get back to messaging. It's like just one more guy saying it who's a political figure. But more importantly, perhaps to Trump, is the big donors are saying it. They said it over the weekend to him. They said, hey, what am I most excited about? I'm excited about the message that we have. They're trying to send him these various indications that that's what he needs to get back to. But, I'd say that, I don't mean to dwell on it too much, Gary, but it does seem to be almost like a tragic flaw, like one of those Greek tragedian figures, who just has something they can't get away from. I don't think he speaks about policy very well. I don't think he really understands policy on a lot of things. He's a showman, and he puts on a show, and he calls people names, and he kind of rides the wave. I think, and he's charismatic. I mean, I've always said that from the very start, and I've got no appetite for him, but he is charismatic. And I don't know that he can really he'll have to be prompter, wedded to the prompter, the way he was for the last 2 weeks of the Clinton campaign against him. If he does that, then he can do it. I mean, do you agree with me on that? I think if you leave him to riff, he doesn't riff around policy.
Well, I'll tell you interesting, Mark, if you just go back 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and look at some of the things that he handled well. And some of these were prompter developed, you're right, but he would oftentimes go off the cuff on those, but he still didn't go into attack dog mode. This is my take on Trump. When he's doing well, he will follow the script. In other words, the script from his campaign. And every campaign is doing everything they can to keep their candidate, doesn't matter if it's Republican, Democrat, Independent, keep them within their lane, right? Keep them inside the guardrails. Trump was doing that, and he was doing it successfully. When he seems to really struggle and get into that New York City street fighter, street brawl kind of thing, is when he starts struggling. When his poll numbers have been dipping, there's no question about it. We kind of expected this, right? When Joe Biden dropped out, everybody knew there was going to be a bump because the sitting president was struggling so much. So what you're seeing right now, New York Times Siena poll comes out over the weekend. In the key blue wall battleground states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, all of a sudden now, Harris is up on Trump by 4 points. Now, a lot of people expected she would get that kind of a bump, but that's the reality of it. In the national polls, where Biden had dropped, sometimes they're down to 5 or 6 points or more below Trump in the national polls. Now they're even Steven, or sometimes it depends one or the other. They're a half a point or a point ahead. So that's where we are. That's made Trump reportedly very incensed. It should be expected. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if her poll numbers, Mark, go up even a little bit more during the DNC week next week. And then it's game on. Then we have that 2.5 month sprint to Election Day. And that's when we're really going to begin to see, do her poll bumps stick or do they not?
It's interesting you talk about the polls because there's just one part of the polls I'd like to focus on. We talk about them a lot here. People give me a hard time because I do try to watch the polling, particularly in these swing states. But one part of a poll that I wanted your reaction to related to the economy, because we always hear about, well, Republicans have this, I think it's not a deserved reputation of handling the economy well or whatever. And Trump is kind of, let me tell you, the economy was better under me. I mean, everything's better under him. We know you get that bluster. But more to the point, I mean, to be fair, they are associated with handling the economy more responsibly. Again, we can debate whether or not that's actually true. Most voters, according to this latest polling, say they trust Vice President Harris to handle the economy better than they do former President Trump. This is a poll released this morning from the Financial Times and the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. Harris leads Trump 42-41 in the August poll when respondents were asked which candidate they trust to handle the economy, regardless of whom they plan on supporting in November. This is the first time that a Democratic candidate has inched ahead of the GOP candidate on the economy question since this polling began last year. Thoughts?
Right. Well, I think those numbers are getting a lot of headlines today. It's one poll. Again, I associate it, Mark, with the general bump she's getting. I mean, you look at really pretty much across the board, any poll, she's gone up. But this has particularly got to be concerning to the GOP because the two big issue areas that, man, I'm telling you, the Trump campaign has been crowing about, and rightfully so, because it didn't matter who was doing the poll, right, left, center. He was up by double digits in every poll on two issues: the economy / inflation and immigration. Now, if these numbers stick, if Harris's numbers look like they're going to be even with Trump's, let alone better, this is going to be very worrying to the GOP. So again, let's see where that ends up in about 2-3 weeks. But right now, no doubt the Harris people have to be very happy about that. Here's the other big potential sand trap for Harris. She's going to go back out on the campaign trail with Joe Biden. Now, there's going to be a lot of people. I can't wait to hear, for example, I can't wait to hear what our dear friend James Carville says about this. The advisability of going out on the campaign trail with the guy that Carville was saying, you got to throw him overboard 6 months ago. Because there is a danger in that, all right? What she's had so far that's been very interesting to me, Mark, is quite a bit of daylight between her and the sitting president. There's been very little affiliation or assignment of blame, so to speak, though the GOP has tried to do it, of course, between her and Biden. So if she goes back out, what she's scheduled to do starting this week in Maryland and elsewhere with the sitting president, you just have to wonder, is that going to begin to, oh, geez, that's right. She's been there, his right-hand person for 3.5 years. Oh, yeah, right. Well, she must have the same policies as Biden, and I don't feel great about that. So that's going to be very interesting to watch, Mark, in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And I'm thinking back to Gore and Clinton. Am I remembering this right? Because there was a...
You're right.
Yeah. There was a sense that Gore shouldn't appear on stage with Clinton necessarily, even though Clinton had presided over all of this, economic prosperity. But there's always that weird thing, like you want the best of the candidate of the person who's on stage with you, but you don't want the stink of the person who's on stage with you.
Yeah, that was a very, very strategic move, by the way, by the Gore campaign. And they made no bones about it internally. They were not going to put Bill on the stage with Al. And after he lost, Bill Clinton famously gave one of those kind of turn the head sort of, well, maybe that wasn't the best decision, because he claimed that at least in strategic parts of the country and with certain demographics, particularly black voters and others, he could have helped get Gore over the top. And this is the strategy apparently for Harris. They're going to deploy Biden, particularly in Pennsylvania, where he has pulled strong. But remember, before he dropped out, he was even behind in Pennsylvania. So I think this is a semi-high risk move by the Harris people, and I'm going to be really interested to see how it turns out.
One of the things that Trump's people, I don't know to what extent Trump's involved, are doing well, if I can pay them a compliment. I try to be objective. Obviously, I'm partisan. As I say, I've got no appetite for Trump and his people who have thrown in with him, and I think they're it's full of corruption. It's full of disregard for some of the underpinnings of this country. I'm talking about January 6th. It's that kind of thing. But anyway, and overthrowing the election. But let me just pay them a compliment. I think one of the things they've done well is they've gotten Trump into some of these other areas of platforming that don't represent legacy media, meaning he's not just showing up on cable or the Today Show or calling in wherever. He's doing these things. But, you know, when you have Elon Musk on your side, you have an ability to get your message out in other ways. And now he's doing a meeting with Musk on Twitter, right? He's doing a Twitter Spaces, and Musk is in deep with him. He's endorsed him. He's also pledged money, although, you know, the amount of money is a little bit in question. And I'm curious as to two things. A, if you think this will be effective, this Twitter Spaces reaching out in this way, that technology, if it is effective. And also how, I guess, Trump will come over to the electric car world. I mean, he's been so anti-electric cars, anti-battery. He's got the whole, I mean, Trump is all over the road on this, but the road is all combustion engines. He does not go on the electric car road. Tell me how he makes that work in the conversation with Musk.
Well, I'm going to be shocked if there's much time spent tonight on electric cars with Musk and with Trump. No, seriously. And I think I see the Musk-Trump thing as very symbiotic, as always happens in politics, right? I mean, I think Musk, we know he has no love lost for the state of California, for Gavin Newsom, its governor. I mean, he's made that clear. Those feuds have been well documented. You know, Musk is moving his operations. He's made no bones about it to Texas. He's kind of a free spirit, free market, you know, hey, leave me alone kind of a guy. Let me see if I can get to Mars, you know, all the rest of it. I mean, it's quite remarkable. To me, the interesting thing about this is going to be, and by the way, the Harris campaign is doing a lot of their own outreach, as you know. To me, I'm wondering, Mark, if 2024 is going to be when the political analysts and the political sociologists and everybody start writing about this in the next 5-10 years. Was 2024 the election where the so-called new media tipped the scale in favor of one candidate or another? Because it's been the legacy media. It's been, we call it now the linear media, broadcast-wise, as opposed to the online media. Of course, the print media, most people think is dinosaurs. But, you know, you still got the old gray lady and the rest of them, although most people read that stuff online now. But the point of the matter is, I think I'm super intrigued to see if just Elon Musk having him on, Mark, regardless of whether all, you know, the 20-somethings even watch it. Oh, Elon's having him on? Okay, well, I need to take a look at Trump then. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes total sense. In fact, that's kind of what I'm saying. There's a shimmer to the rebellious aspect of Elon Musk, and maybe that shimmer gets onto Trump as well, because he's also a rebel. No contendo. So how does Trump serve two masters, oil industry and Musk? I think the same way that politicians in this country serve multiple masters all the time. I don't see it as a real issue. Musk is a narcissist like Trump, says Jose. It's going to be a sham interview. I mean, I think it'll be a softball interview, but it's something. And increasingly, these softball interviews, Trump just, you know, riffs away on whatever, and you might end up with some real nuggets. But I'd also say, last thing on Musk, because people go, well, why do we care about Musk? You should care about Musk. Musk runs so much of what the United States is involved in from the standpoint of space programs, from the standpoint of battery storage. Musk is way, way, way important to the United States of America, which is one of the reasons it's so hard to regulate him. But he's benefited immensely from these tax benefits. And Gary, you can talk about the subsidies that he's benefited from. And once he's squeezed California dry, now he's ready to book it to Texas.
Well, you know, I think the thing about it, you're hitting on the real rub of this thing, Mark, and that is, you know, does Elon Musk really care all that much whether Donald Trump wants to continue to go down to, you know, Alabama and say, don't take away our diesel pickups? I mean, you know, I think that he knows the political world. He knows that certain things have to be said. I mean, Kamala Harris has now come out and her campaign's made no bones about it. She's quote unquote changed her mind on fracking. You know, though she's real big on climate change concerns, you know, for Pennsylvania's sake, let's just cut to the chase. You know, you cannot be anti-fracking and want to win some of these key states, and her campaign knows that. So, you know, everybody, I'm not trying to paint everybody with the same brush, but there is a broad brush to this, you know, and so I think Musk understands that. He doesn't expect Trump to ride around in a Tesla during his campaign or even a Cybertruck, and he knows why he can't. But on balance, he feels like I'm going to get a better shot at the way I like to do entrepreneurial freewheeling business under Trump. I think that's his basic take.
I would agree with that because Trump is all transactional. Just wet Trump's beak and you'll be fine. Gary, those are my words, not yours. Gary, I love our time together. Thank you for spending a part of Mondays with us. You can find Gary Dietrich across the CBS television network and across California on CBS stations, also across iHeart Radio from coast to coast and around the world. Love your takes, and I look forward to next week. What a wild ride, pal. Thank you so much. Gary Dietrich, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark.
All right. See you, pal. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Really something. As a coda to that, I'll just tell you, I was going to do this in chunk of Trump. Maybe I'll still do it in chunk of Trump. Let me see what I've got. I've got so much at the in this world. I really got to a lot of stuff with Gary. But let me just do this as a one-off. The Trump plan now. Trump's got a big plan. And you won't be surprised to learn that this plan, I should say, does include a lawsuit. Yeah. Right. It's what he does best.
He doesn't do much without lawyers, right?
Yeah, he likes suing. Former President Donald Trump is set to sue the Justice Department for $100 million. He's going to sue over the classified documents raid on his Mar-a-Lago estate.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
Yeah, but God can't sue. Donald Trump can. Trump's lawyers wrote in a legal memo that the raid showed, quote, a clear intent to engage in political persecution. The FBI's raid on Mar-a-Lago took place August 8th, 2022. Hundreds of pages of classified documents were removed. Trump was facing 40 federal charges in Judge Eileen Cannon's court over the alleged handling of sensitive materials seized during the raid. He was also accused, and by the way, this is important, of obstructing efforts by federal authorities to retrieve those documents. He pleaded not guilty, and of course, the case has been delayed now because you have Eileen Cannon, who's essentially a concierge judge for Donald Trump. They threw out all the charges last month, ruling that special counsel Jack Smith was wrongly appointed. I mean, that was, again, a decision from the bench, from the judge. And this note about the lawsuit, to me, is laughable. It's laughable because there were such respectful demands for those documents to be returned. They came from the archivist initially. There were letters exchanged. There were actually documents returned, and then it was realized that just a fraction of the documents they wanted were returned. Then there were active efforts, and there's plenty of deposition on this. There were active efforts to conceal the location and even the existence of a lot of the documents there at Mar-a-Lago. And it's believed, by the way, that there are documents elsewhere, Bedminster, in Manhattan, at his residence. But in any case, the active efforts to obscure the fact that there were documents still there and where they were, the location was taken care of, moved, the effort to erase various closed-circuit camera video of that. I mean, this is all showing a wide conspiracy to maintain these documents, which you have held illegally. I don't see, honestly, why you want to sue, because by suing, to whatever extent they can get out details of the sort that I just mentioned, it's going to get a stink on you. As I've told you, if I had Trump in some kind of debate, I'd go, explain to me why you had 1,500 classified documents, including top military documents, with you at Mar-a-Lago in completely insecure locations from bathrooms to ballrooms. Explain that to me.
He probably thinks that it makes him look strong, like he's still fighting back against his alleged political persecution. We look at it and think, listen, you had every opportunity to turn those documents back over to the government and avoid any such raid on your house or your estate or whatever, your Mar-a-Lago hoop-de-hoo. But he's probably thinking this is a great way for him to continue talking about political persecution in the waning days of the campaign, right? So it's a way for him to bring it back up again.
He cares about punching back, so he feels he's lost that back and forth in Mar-a-Lago.
Right.
And so you're right. He wants to punch back the same way that he's punching back on the crowd size, the same way that he's punching back on the race of Kamala Harris. No, let me show you I was actually right. No, let me show you these crowd sizes aren't what you think they are. These are all ways in which Trump essentially punches back. He likes to do that. He claims in that spirit that he is leading. Donald Trump has claimed he is leading in almost all of the real polls, as he says. That's a quote. Almost all of the real polls show me ahead.
What are the real polls?
Trump is citing his polling numbers to back up the claim that this is by far my best run for the White House. Most of the polling companies have Trump leading his Democratic opponent, intending to favor Republican candidates or are considered unreliable or inaccurate. In other words, the ones that show him ahead are the ones that are gamed to show him ahead. Like Rasmussen gave Trump a 5-point lead, and, that's not a reliable poll any longer. It's where you go for that result that you want.
Sure.
YouGov, Marquette, Marist, they all show Harris beating Trump, as you are aware.
At the time he was doing best in the polls, because he really hasn't done very much campaigning lately. When he was doing better in the polls, it was campaigning from the courthouse steps, and that was easy. He didn't have to get on a plane, didn't have to fly anywhere. He just stood outside the courthouse and spouted off.
Well,
and
there was one other huge difference, and it was he was running against Joe Biden. You've got a fervor around Harris that is palpable.
It's
palpable
true.
is a ding word.
But I'm just thinking that's why he's suing the DOJ, maybe because he wants to go back to the courthouse and do that whole thing again.
I see. I want to change a venue. Well, he can still campaign at the courthouse if he wants. But anyway, that's his latest lawsuit and a demand to show people the real polls, because the real polls have him ahead.
There's never been anything like this.
There really hasn't. So, much to do today. I will tell you that
The Mark Thompson Show.
we would ask you to smash the like button. The number of likes we
Smash
get,
it
I guess,
with
is
your
important
iron
on
rod.
YouTube. We're, in the YouTube algorithm. And so that does help us. So thank you for that. Smash it with your iron rod.
With your iron rod.
Subscribe to the show and hit the little bell underneath the video, and you'll know whenever there's a new video. So if you've missed, this is a 2-hour live show we do every day, but we break this out into portions and videos that you may find just easier to digest, or meaning might be for your life, the rhythm of your life might be easier. So we'll let you know whenever there's a new video up. You don't have to watch it, but it's a way of telling you. So again, that's right there. Most people who are familiar with YouTube know, hit the notification bell and you are in. You will be notified. Speaking of YouTube, this is kind of a sad thing, but I did want to mention it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The former YouTube CEO has passed away. She's only 56 years old. I'm embarrassed. I don't know how to say her last name. It feels like
Wojcicki.
Wojcicki. Say it again.
Yeah, I say Wojcicki.
Wojcicki?
Yeah.
Okay. So Susan Wojcicki, an instrumental figure in the birth of Google, later oversaw YouTube. She's passed away at 56, so young. She joined Google as one of the earliest employees. She led development of this AdSense product, which is a widget that allows the company to broker ads for millions of independent websites. That's important because creators need to get something for being on YouTube, and that helped get them that, and that's what she was developing. Later, as YouTube CEO, she oversaw the site's business model, and it matured into an operation generating billions of dollars of revenue for video creators and Google's parent company, Alphabet, right? They also cracked down on controversial content that threatened to dirty up the public image of YouTube. She left the top job in 2023, saying that she wanted to focus on her family, health, and personal projects. She was still an advisor. But she'd been living with lung cancer for the last couple of years.
Her son went to UC Berkeley and died in some type of incident on campus there when he was I think it was in 2019, or it was recently her teenage son passed away.
Oh, that's fascinating.
She's had it rough, yeah.
It's funny that she had a kind of the opposite life of what you might think. I think, at least in part. She had a reputation, I guess, that was developed as the most important Google employee that few people had heard of outside of the company's walls. But she raised chickens, drove her children to soccer practice in a minivan, and she tried to strike that work-life balance. She took responsibility for 2 of Google's most consequential acquisitions. In 2006, she said that Google should buy YouTube. Again, YouTube was then a small but fast-growing site for homemade videos. And a year later, she pushed for the acquisition of DoubleClick, which oversaw the most popular advertising network. So she's really on top during the time that she was at Google and YouTube of both acquisitions and monetization, it seems. And both of those acquisitions morphed into 2 of the company's largest and most important units. Truly a brilliant and forward-looking person who was taken too soon. I didn't know her. I just, first of all, when a young person passes away, it jumps out at you, and obviously she was a key figure in Google's rise. So Susan Wojcicki passes away at age 56.
I think she was the landlord of the Google founders at one point. That's how they got to know her.
Oh, that's a great fact.
Yeah.
That's really great. Wow. Good stuff, Kim. Good stuff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, so I'd like to get a little news from Kim. And then when we come back, it's True Crime Corner. Courtney is here, and we try to ride and exploit the popularity of true crime. If you know me, you know I don't give a rat about true crime. Josh Mankiewicz is maybe my closest friend. He's from Dateline NBC. And Josh, is a brilliant figure in this world of true crime. I don't watch his stuff. I mean, sometimes I'll watch it. If he's got something special, I'll watch it because it's Josh. But otherwise, I don't really spark to it. But my polar opposite in terms of interest is Courtney. She lives and breathes it. She knows these cases. And the other thing she does, and I wish she wouldn't do this, is she stays up all night preparing this segment that you're about to see. I say, please, sweetheart, go to sleep. This is, you're not, she treats every segment with such care. So we'll look forward to her joining us here in the mix. And there's Mankiewicz with that kind of snide, what would you call that expression he's got?
Is that a smirk?
Yeah, it's a smirky. He really does smirk well. Yeah. When it comes to smirkiness, he's really without peer. And the other thing that he does is he's got that pocket square. You see that thing that he wears in his, it's a pink pocket square.
Sure.
That's a big thing for him. He's like the Dateline correspondent who is super put together in terms of what, even his casual stuff all goes perfectly. So I think we had a quake. Is that a quake?
Oh, I hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're having a quake. Big one. This is a big shaker.
You all right? Do you need to duck and cover?
Maybe. I don't know. I need to duck and cover, but...
Is it still shaking?
Quake, huh? That's a quake, yeah. Wow. I know. That was big. Wow. Put up a picture of Mankiewicz and we get a quake. Jeez.
Well, the earth does move,
How big a quake was that, Tony? I can't hear you, but
it just happened. I don't know if we have
4.6.
You have it already?
It's
Thanks, Tony.
It's an estimated 4.6 north of Los Angeles. Sorry, I'm bringing it up as I can. I'll find a better leak, but it just in my phone, it literally beeped. It was a weird. I'm like, I don't know that notification.
That was scary. I will tell you this. You can tell something about how big a quake it is because there's stuff still on. There's none of these things are tied down, and these are like this is a balancing act. All our mugs and stuff. These antique radios. They're not. There's nothing holding them in place. So, when you see
hear
them
the
go,
rattling, it was obvious that something
that
was happening
that
there.
was the real thing, man. That was the real thing. Wow.
That's kind of exciting.
It's exciting when it's not when everybody's okay.
So I have the information now that just popped up on the USGS website. They say magnitude 4.7, about 4 kilometers southwest of South Pasadena was where it originated. It was about 9 kilometers deep. So that's the preliminary info.
And I'm sorry, what was the epicenter?
It was about 4 kilometers southwest of South Pasadena.
Wow.
That's a magnitude 4.7, 9 kilometers deep.
Man. Mm-hmm. That's scary. There you go. Information on screen. 4.7. Kim's news. She'll talk about the Middle East, what's going on there. American warship going there, I know, among other things. It does look like they're spoiling for some kind of huge battle. We'll give you more quake news as we get it. Those of you who are regular listeners who are here from Southern California, a lot of Northern California listeners, and of course there are people all over the country, but if you have a quake experience, you can pop it on into the chat and we'll share it. Smash the like button. Don't smash it too
with
hard.
Your iron rod.
Kim's News, and then True Crime Corner. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Elon Musk will interview former President Trump on X, and that will happen tonight. There's Elon. The interview will be hosted live on Trump's official social media account, 8 p.m. Eastern. Access to Trump's account was restored after being suspended by the previous owners of X, or Twitter, following the January 6th Capitol riot. Musk endorsed Trump after last month's assassination attempt. The Biden administration, in a different story, believes Israel could be attacked by Iran and its proxies as soon as this week. And so, the National Security Council spokesman John Kirby told reporters Iran has threatened to retaliate against Israel following the recent assassinations of Hamas and Hezbollah leaders. So the U.S. has sent more military resources to that region and is now monitoring rising tensions in the Middle East.
So the thinking is if you post enough American military power in the region, you send a message, which is clear, that we will get involved if this thing becomes some huge conflagration. That said, Iran almost has to retaliate in some way, but it is suggested, again, in sort of a sub-rosa way, just the whispering that they'll retaliate, but they'll try to manage the retaliation such that it doesn't provoke a bigger Israeli response. Again, these things can oftentimes back into situations that get out of hand, but I think that was what I was reading over the weekend, that the essential elements of a retaliation they're going to try to manage. And one of the reasons they're going to manage it, I think in part, is because of that American military force that's there.
A lot of people heading to the polls today. Several states, actually, rather tomorrow. In Minnesota, progressive Congresswoman Ilhan Omar will defend her seat against former Minneapolis City Council member Don Samuels. The contest comes after the two other members of the so-called Progressive Squad, Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, lost their Democratic primaries this cycle. So again, we have voters heading to the polls in several states tomorrow. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is urging Donald Trump to stop questioning the size of the campaign rally crowds that Kamala Harris is bringing in. In an interview with Fox News today, the California Republican said Trump should focus instead on Harris's policy positions, including her handling of the southern border, not the whole crowd size issue. Experts say, with school coming up for so many kids, that parents should help their children adjust their sleep schedules to get ready for the start of fall classes. Sleep disorder specialist Dr. Bruce Chen of the Cleveland Clinic is recommending setting your youngsters' sleep an hour earlier and limiting the use of video games and cell phones before bedtime. Studies have shown lack of sleep can affect concentration and school performance.
Boy, that the phone thing I'd love to talk about. I had it set aside as a topic for us, and I'd love to get to it maybe later this week or in some kind of forum you and I can share, just because I think that I know that that's not what the story is about. It's about getting kids sleep and everything, and obviously the screens are a stimulant of sorts, so they don't help you get to sleep. But what's happening in California schools and in schools across the nation increasingly is that they're realizing that these phones are a massive distraction, and they really get in the way of learning. And the pushback, though, like, you're taking my kid's phone. It's like it's crazy. It's utterly crazy. I mean, it's an anti-learning tool, I think, the phone. I hate to be the hard ass, but I mean, kids have to be in various environments in which they can get rid of those things that distract them from focus, because it's already hard enough to focus as a kid. Anyway, we'll talk about that later in the week.
It's happened. Let the countdown begin for next Summer Olympics in California. Paris handed over hosting duties to Los Angeles yesterday. Mayor Karen Bass receiving the official flag at the closing ceremony and will return to Los Angeles with it today. She's promised no car games in 2028. Not only does she plan to expand public transportation, she's asking businesses to let employees work from home during the games to avoid traffic jams.
Yeah, they really want to turn it into like a public transport situation, which is the opposite of what LA is. But
isn't that what happened in '84?
Yeah, in '84 they
went, I'm not going to LA, and it became a ghost town.
It's true, what Tony's talking about, but it wasn't really matched with the kind of public transport that Bass is talking about. No. But Tony's right. People expected there to be so much gridlock that they just didn't show up, and it turned out it was just the opposite. It was like a ghost town.
And if I remember right, that's why radio stations started doing traffic reports, right?
I didn't know that. Is that right?
I remember if that's a story I've always heard, is that's why traffic reports started happening every 15 minutes, was the Olympics are going to be hell. That has to be a thing in our news reports because it's going to be so bad.
Oh, that's super interesting. I always think the reason for traffic reports, and this is pretty well borne out, is because they're sponsored.
Yeah.
And everything, why do they read the weather so much? Because it's sponsored. You know what I mean? Yeah, they've got to, anyway, but interesting.
An update on the earthquake that you experienced in Southern California, a downgrading of the magnitude to 4.4. It was, now we know, according to the USGS, 4 kilometers southeast of Highland Park, California, at a depth of 12.1 kilometers, so a little deeper than originally thought. There you go, 4.4 is what we've got so far.
I wonder if Donald Trump is contesting that in any way.
Maybe he'll sue.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could be. In San Francisco, we're showing off the new fleet of electric trains. Apparently, they're faster, they're quieter, they're more spacious. Governor Gavin Newsom joined other state leaders in San Francisco over the weekend for the first ride. He says the Caltrain project is an integral part of high-speed rail. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calls it a model for the nation. This 51-mile stretch of electrified tracks is expected to carry bullet trains from the Central Valley to the Bay Area as well. A search is underway for thieves who vandalized an iconic San Francisco ice cream shop. Mitchell's caught the whole thing on tape Friday morning. The co-owner says they used bolt cutters to bust through the front window and try to steal the safe, only to find it bolted down. Couldn't take it. So they left with an empty cash register and a bag of cookies. The shop stayed open over the weekend. They estimate the damage to be about $5,000, probably mostly because of the window. The newest arena in the Los Angeles area is having its grand opening this week. It's a $2 billion Intuit Dome in Inglewood. The home of the Clippers, the new home of the Clippers, officially opens on Thursday. Pop star Bruno Mars will perform at the arena Thursday and Friday. Comedian Sebastian Maniscalco will headline the venue's first comedy show on Saturday. The Intuit Dome, which has been in the works since 2021, is also expected to host basketball during the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. So welcome. Have you seen it? Have you driven past it?
I have not. I have not. Looking forward. Thank you.
Yeah, should be a good one.
Should be good.
Always exciting to get a new venue because you needed that in Los Angeles, you know.
Right. We need venues is the one thing we need. Yeah.
We talked about this with Professor Andrew Fracknoy, but the stargazers might want to pull an all-nighter tonight because this is one of the best meteor shower viewing nights so far this year. The annual Perseid meteor shower expected to peak late Monday night into the overnight on Tuesday. The meteor shower expected to contain up to 100 meteors traveling at more than 133,000 miles per hour or 36 miles per second. NASA officials say the best time to view that meteor shower is about 2 o'clock in the morning. So
yeah, the late night hours, baby.
Going to be a late night. Everybody outside at 2
Get
a.m.
your meteor shower, yeah.
That's right. Because we can't say it enough, this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It is so good. The tea is amazing. That vanilla tea, the ginger mint.
What is the tea that you like? You like a tea. Which one is it, Courtney? You like a tea also?
Oh, I like so many of their teas. I like their, I think it's like their Earl Grey.
Oh yeah.
I like their English breakfast. I also really like.
Does it have a ginger?
They have like a
like?
mango and a ginger. Yeah,
very good.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. It's very good.
So
It is CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Teas, coffees, hand roasted, really good quality. And you get 10% off for being a Mark Thompson Show listener. Just enter Mark T at checkout. And boom, there your 10% goes flying off your total, and it's a happy day.
I'm having a little cup right now. Something special. It's straightforward. I just went for the straightforward cup of coffee today, but it's magnificent. Magnifico, as I say in my country.
Yeah, that's very nice. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. It's our live show, 2 hours live every day from California to the world. Thank you for being here. Maybe you noticed I just had my hair darkened. Yes, it's got to fade right now. It's a little too dark, but it'll fade and look a little more natural.
Slow news day?
What's that?
Slow news day?
Slow news day, Mark. Yeah, in between breaking news, I got it. I mentioned just in passing, and I don't mean to be Trumpian in this way, but I mentioned the public transit in 1984, and it was it 84, Tony, that the Olympics were in Los Angeles?
Yeah, and
you're muted. You're muted. Yeah, yeah.
And
so I was mentioning
right,
that,
yeah.
but didn't have the component of the commitment to public transport that we're going to have in the election in the Olympics coming up in 28. So the reason I'm trying to find, is it Chris who went after me? Chris, who's kind of he's a pot stirrer. I think. He goes something to the effect of, there are 10 times the number of people in Los Angeles in 2028 that there are in 1984. And I thought, you know what, maybe he's right. I come from a place of charity and a warm-heartedness. So I'm always looking, this. I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe he's right. Maybe there are 10 times the number of people in Los Angeles in 2028 that existed, and I think that's a little bit of okay. So I went back and looked. Okay, Chris. I went back and looked. Do you want to guess, Chris, since you seem to know everything? How many people lived in Los Angeles in 1984? Since you seem to know so much. You want to take a guess? I didn't think so. A little over 10 million. How many people are in Los Angeles now? I mean, you go by the 10 times as many. Not really. 13 million. Okay? Chris. So back off, my friend, because I will fact check your ass. All right? Yeah. It's no fun. Which when you're just trolling, it's kind of fun, right? But when you get fact checked, it's no fun anymore, is it?
Chris is too busy posting to Truth Social to listen to this show.
Good day, sir.
Could be right. I have a love-hate relationship with Chris. Anyway. Courtney, are you okay through the quake?
That scared me. I'm still shaking. Wow. Because there's a moment where you're, at least for me, I was assessing what is happening right now. Because I can feel and I can hear things shaking, but it didn't quite register initially that it was, in fact, a quake. And it was fairly large, right? 4.7.
Well, it was under 5, which I
Yeah.
think is pretty key.
It did scare me a little bit.
Yeah. It's definitely scary. I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Courtney, I'll tell you this one last thing because she is my darling other half, and we'll get True Crime Corner going in a minute. But when it comes to evacuation, no one is better than Courtney. Now, when I say better, I don't mean that she'll collect vital medicines and legal documents that you may need, or photos or pictures that you might find important because you're not going to be coming back.
No, I'm the first out.
She's the first out. Because we evacuated. Remember, our home burned. Our neighborhood burned, right?
Yeah.
So I turned to her and I said, all right, listen, you grab Cash, the cat, and then I'll grab, and I didn't even get I'll grab out. She was gone. I heard the car like screeching down the street.
I was peeling out. I drove away.
So I know that when the time comes for her to evacuate, she'll be head of the parade.
I know. Well, I know that I'll be okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've taken into account that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, first thing I did was run in here and interrupt your show. So.
That's all right. By the way, the coda to this, I was there in 1984. It was a lot less crowded, Chris says. Yeah, it was a lot less crowded, Chris, because people left town. We just explained it to you. All right, Chris. I think you're done for the day, Chris. I just can't engage in this anymore. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Everybody smash the like button if you would. We've done a lot.
Iron rod.
If you want your Trump stuff, if you want to drill down on Kamala Harris, if you want to drill down on the latest polling, it's in the first hour. We'll drop it as a separate video. We have some takes from Gary Dietrich as well, who is the political ninja for the CBS television network and iHeart Radio. All of that is in the first hour. We also gave you a spotlight on the Olympics and some of the controversies, as well as the closing ceremonies. Again, that's all in hour 1. Now, let's get into a fan favorite. This is True Crime Corner.
Let's pay a visit to Mark's True Crime Corner.
This is not a good neighborhood. I'm scared.
Now, here's your host, Mark Thompson.
The real queen of true crime is here. My other half, Courtney, everybody.
Hi. Yep.
Hello.
Thank you.
Courtney, I'll turn it over to you. What do you have for us today?
Well, I was working on another story, and then I had a TikTok served to me, and this woman was talking about the best documentary she'd ever seen in her life, and she fashioned herself a true crime aficionado. Yeah. So I thought, well, I have to watch this. I didn't realize I was getting into 6 hours of programming, but it's an incredible story, and it is told over 11 years of shooting.
What's the name of the story, Courtney?
The story is called Relentless, and the story the limited series is called Relentless, and the story follows a woman named Christina Whitaker who goes missing. The filmmaker's name is Christina Fontana, And she starts to make a documentary in 2010 helping families with missing family members. And at a meeting where she begins to shoot this, what she thinks is going to be a documentary about these families, she meets the Youngs. And the Youngs are the parents of Christina Whitaker, and she learns about the Christina Whitaker story. She goes on to shoot for 11 years. 11 years. She's still working on it, which would make it 14 years.
This documentary has been going on all this time?
11 years. And so the documentary came out in 2021. It's produced by Blumhouse, and most people know Blumhouse as sort of having a reputation of horror and true crime.
Yeah.
You can watch it on Max. It was initially on Discovery. If you go down, it follows the story of both sort of Christina and Christina. So Christina Fontana is a filmmaker, and Christina Whitaker is a woman who goes missing. But it's really important because it's not just about Christina Whitaker going missing. It is about organized crime. It is about prostitution and sex trafficking. It is about major drug rings. It is about police cover-up. It is about pedophilia and incest. It is such a layered story that, in fact, the only way that I could break it down and tell you about this story was to literally go through every sort of narrative within the 6-hour miniseries to be able to talk about
I don't know if
people that contributed to that story.
Put
So
up
the next
quote
hour
again.
and a half.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. You have to boil that down to like 9 minutes. Put up the quote. This isn't just a story about a girl gone missing, said the filmmaker. It's a story about a town filled with lies and corruption and violence.
Yeah. It is like Karen Reed police cover-up, but I'll use Chris's language 10 times that.
Okay.
A little callback there.
Yeah.
If you go to the next slide, what's important for context is to know that this all takes place in Hannibal, Missouri, which is the childhood home of Mark Twain. So within every single shot of the town or the city is Mark Twain, the Mark Twain Hotel and the Mark Twain childhood home and Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. It's all there as sort of part of the narrative of telling around this story, but specifically this town. And the town has, I think the population's like 17,000, so it is very small. But imagine within that 17,000 person population is this extraordinary amount of lying, concealing, misrepresentation, murder, drugs. It is on a level that you just would never expect going into watching this. So if you go down, Christina Whitaker was 21 when she went missing. She lives with her mother and her stepfather, and then she has 2 older brothers. If you go down, if you're watching, you can see the visuals. She had a daughter named Alexandra, and Alexandria was born 6 months before Christina goes missing. And she names Alexandria after her stepfather. His name is Alex. I don't know where her father is. I think he's left the family. But she is the mother when she goes missing in, if you go down, November of 2009. So she goes out to the bars with her friends. Her mother tries to tell her to stay home and encourages her not to go out, but she wants to go out with some friends. So if you go down, she goes out to a bar in town. It's Rookie Sports Bar. So she goes out to Rookie Sports Bar. She goes to another place, billiards. She's getting kicked out of these bars. She's belligerent. She's with her friend named Breezy. There's a couple eyewitnesses reports of what she's doing in these bars, but what we know is she's probably taking drugs and very belligerent, and so she gets kicked out of all of them. She does call her boyfriend at 10:45 at night. She talks to him about the evening and about their child, does not have any reference about coming home. And then at 7 a.m., her boyfriend, his name is Travis, calls her parents and says, Christina did not come home last night. And so they start to look for her and report her as a missing person. Now, if you go up...
We're seeing Travis, he made the call to her folks.
Yeah, he made the call to her folks.
Okay.
So if you go up to the map, the person, a man finds her phone, that little red dot there at the bottom left. A man finds her phone at 7 a.m. where that dot is. If you go down, his name is Danny Baker. He's one of the narrative suspects in this. So his ex-girlfriend says confidently that Danny was with Christina that night, that they went back to Danny's house, they took a bunch of drugs, that Danny and another man hit Christina with their car, killed her, and then dumped her in the river. This woman is telling an account of this as being Danny's ex-girlfriend. Danny is also a sex offender, registered sex offender, who did some horrible things with minors. So he is not a good guy. And he finds a phone at 7 a.m. Now, he discovers who Christina is because he looks through her phone and knows her aunt. So he takes the phone to her aunt. Her aunt gives the phone to her boyfriend. Her boyfriend gives the phone to her mother and her stepfather. And then the police want the phone. So then the phone eventually gets to the police. So what I'm saying is the only piece of physical evidence from Christina of that night goes through a lot of hands before it actually ends up with the police. Yeah. If you go down, the next woman is named Breezy Carver. This is a woman who Christina was out with that night. She has never spoken to anyone ever about this case. She never responded to the filmmaker and the producers. I'm not sure if she's had a police interview.
Well, they must have talked to her, the cops, right?
And I noticed something last night when I was looking up content around this. She posted a year ago this, and I thought it was very strange to not talk to anyone, not contribute at all, but be on social talking about the case. Very weird.
What does it say? I can't see it.
It says something crazy, Christina, been on my mind a lot recently. So she's certainly engaging and watching this story, but she did not contribute at all to this limited series, and I think she was not really talking to officials.
Crazy Christina, been on my mind a lot recently. Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you go to the next one, then her boyfriend is accused of kidnapping her by the parents. They go on this TV show. They talk about it. That's quickly debunked.
That's Travis Blackwell.
He's not the father of the child, but he is taking care of the child on the night that Christina's out with her friends. If you go down, another narrative around this is Darcy Morris. That is his cousin, Anthony. Anthony says that Darcy Morris wrote him a letter about killing Christina, about taking Christina from the bars that night, putting her into sex trafficking as a prostitute and taking her to Peoria, Illinois, where he leaves her, drops her off, and that Darcy got into a fight with Christina in Peoria and killed her.
Wow.
So that is another story.
So who made that accusation?
Anthony, his cousin,
okay.
Anthony McPike.
The other guy on the left.
So that's another confident story told with evidence, a claim that happened.
So these stories are believable.
These stories are believable. If you go down, the next narrative story about what happened, this is a man named Glenn Ledbetter. He was part of an organized crime family that has been in this part of Missouri dating back to like the late 18th century, early 19th century. In fact, Mark Twain talks about the criminal family that he's part of in 1870 as being there in 1870. Now,
it's a long history of criminal activity in that area.
There's some titling around this family. They call themselves the asphalt crime family or asphalters. They do a lot of fraudulent work with homeowners. And that's how they became known as sort of the asphalters because of, how they're deceiving people. But he
Joe
owns
Box and Little Anthony.
Yeah, well, maybe they were in the crime family. Joe Box and Little Anthony.
He owns a big property, and it's alleged that Christina is killed by the organized crime family, and she's buried here. Now, on the left-hand side is an earlier shot of Glenn Ledbetter's property, and you can see sort of on the right-hand side, there's like disturbed dirt, and then on the right hand side is a very new picture of the property, and there is no disturbed dirt. So It is alleged that the organized crime connection is through Glenn Ledbetter. Also,
But
that
her body was found on that property?
never found.
No, so they're just saying that it was
They're
buried
just saying,
there.
but what I'm trying to say is there's a legitimate witness that witnessed her being killed by this organized crime.
Well,
and
legitimate
witnessed-
because the story is believable.
because the story is believable.
Okay.
Joe
But
Fish,
this
Sal the
is like
Shoemaker,
five
Joe
or
Box,
s-
and Little Anthony.
Yeah.
This is 5 or 6 stories that are plausible that could have been represented as being truthful.
And you're saying, and you're saying
to the filmmaker,
and they're
like,
represented
how do you
in
make sense
a
of
credible
this?
way.
Yeah, in a credible way. That's probably a better way of saying it. And then if you go down, I have a photograph of the families from like the early 20th century, 1910-ish.
That was, what family is that?
This is the organized
Joe
crime
Box
family.
and Little Anthony?
Yeah,
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 okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I
They're
got it.
living
Joe
in
Fish,
Missouri.
Sal the
Yeah.
Shoemaker,
Yeah.
Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
Yeah, there they
If
all
you
are.
go down, then
Little Anthony really was little back then. Yeah, go ahead. All right.
if you go down, then this is her parents. So this is Christina with her parents. This is Cindy and Alex Young
So that's when she was just a little girl
when she was just a little girl. Now
on the left, and then on the right.
on the right is Christina and her mother.
Okay.
So now her mother alleges that Christina never touched drugs. Christina never drank alcohol. Christina never had any problems.
And we just know that that's not the
it
case.
comes, yeah. And her mother says that she wouldn't even know a drug if it was sitting on her table. There's videos with her with a crack pipe. There's videos of
Wow.
her husband doing drugs.
Wow.
There comes out
Yeah.
in some of the probation documents from Christina. She was arrested multiple times for selling drugs and buying drugs. And it is alleged, as horrific as this is, that Alex sexually abused Christina when she was a young girl.
No.
Also, it is known that Christina's grandfather, Cindy's father, sexually abused her when she was a little girl.
Jeez, this
I
story
know,
is
it's
full
really,
of things that
really
will demonetize
awful.
me. Thank you.
And then
Shadow
the-
producer Calvin Wong asks, verify alibis. Where were you on the night of the, what about that? I mean, with so many different stories, but are they verifiable from the standpoint of alibis?
Yes. So, well,
I don't mean to-
Darcy,
yeah, go on.
Darcy, his wife says that he was definitely with her and not there. Now, maybe she's covering for him. Danny Booker says that he was with his girlfriend, but now his girlfriend is giving that story about being with Christina. So, and Glenn Ledbetter, there is somebody that says that the organized crime family was involved, but there was no reporting from the police as it relates to how far they investigated that storyline, that suggested situation or scenario.
Okay. Sorry, back to the story.
And
Okay.
then the last two, so it comes out toward the end of this limited series that, in fact, Christina was not only arrested by the police multiple times, but she was a confidential informant for them. So she was a CI. And now it's alleged that she was working undercover for the Hannibal Police Department on the night that she went missing.
Christina was.
And it was found out that she was a confidential informant for the police. She was set up, and the people that she was set up with, it was just a setup that went wrong, and she was killed, and then ultimately her body discarded of. Now, the police has never in any way really contributed to the story with the filmmaker. They ignored her for about 10 years. I mean, they truly covered this up. It's also known that police officers were having sexual relationships with Christina, doing drugs with Christina, and there was a massive cover-up because they are working very closely with the organized criminal family that I was talking about earlier with Glenn Ledbetter and the drug rings.
The
Yep.
cops are working with the criminal
Yep.
family. Wow,
it's
this
crazy.
is insane.
And then the last part of this is that one of the people who was working very close on the film with the filmmaker, Christina Fontana, his name was Darren. And Darren, at the very end of this, commits suicide. And it's shocking because he has been a trusted ally in a sea of misleading stories, misinformation, false confessions, around the missing, sort of the what happened to this young woman, Christina. And so Darren is sort of this supportive voice and ally for Christina Fontana, who's the filmmaker. He had worked at the Missouri State Sheriff. He had worked at the sheriff's office. And so he had a lot of knowledge about what was happening in the police department.
And so
the
he was
sheriff's
talking
office.
to the filmmaker, and it's maybe suggested that he didn't commit suicide, that it was just
Well, that's what I
made
thought.
it look like a suicide? No?
No. He is caught with child pornography, and he is caught as being a corrupt police officer. So everything he was telling the filmmaker for years was all a lie. And now it's alleged that he's working closely with the filmmaker to gain knowledge and understanding of how close she was to unlocking this case and solving this case.
Max
it is
the Cat says
an
this story is
absolute
so unbelievably
crazy,
insane.
wild story. I will say the first 3 episodes are really foundational building, and the last 3 will absolutely blow your mind. It really is an extraordinary story. And I hope that they find Christina, and Christina Fontana, her commitment to this for 14 years is extraordinary.
That is amazing. And documentary film, there's no money in it anyway, typically. And so this is an extraordinary thing to tell this story. Relentless, it's called.
And even the guy, so Glenn Ledbetter, who owns the property that allegedly where the body is buried, somebody bought that property because he died in 2022. And they were trying to extort the film crew, not letting them on the property without paying them. Meaning everybody's in it for themselves. Everybody's lying. Everybody's misleading.
Michael says,
really
is it true
crazy.
the new landowners won't let anyone search on the land?
Yeah, I was just saying that. Yeah.
Wow, very good, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a fascinating story, and I do very much hope that they find Christina. Some people are saying that she's living in Peoria, that she's not dead, that she's living as a sex worker
without her phone.
But I would also suggest, I don't know that she would just leave her daughter, especially to be in a household that was filled with drugs and with a man who was sexually abusing her. That doesn't ring true. So unfortunately, I imagine that she was murdered.
This place sounds like a seedy underbelly. Ew.
It really does.
What's going on in this town?
It's sort of why I gave the context of the Mark Twain and just how small it was. Because at some point in the life of Hannibal, Missouri, it was like America's hometown. I mean, it's very small to have such crazy networks of things happening. And at no point in the story do I really know what anybody does besides drugs and other horrible things.
Wow.
It's not really articulated anywhere. So, but I'm sure there are wonderful people that live in Hannibal, and this is a minority of the population that is in fact doing this.
Man, this is quite a story that spans decades, really something. Wow.
Yeah.
Courtney.
Well,
any other questions? Let me just quickly see if
it was really this woman on TikTok that talked about this. Not a lot of people are talking about this. It's interesting.
Calvin Wong, who is the shadow producer of this program, where's the attorney general or local district attorney in this or other managing authority?
I know they haven't really done anything. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at some point the FBI has been called in, and they did some work on Glenn Ledbetter's land, but for whatever reason, not a lot of resources have been put toward this, I don't think.
Natalie says, if the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, this family has an orchard. It is true. It doesn't seem like the kind of family you want to go over to spend Thanksgiving with.
Well, it's weird too. I mean, here's Cindy's building this veneer and narrative around a family that's really close and has no problems, and suddenly the most horrific things come out. I don't know at what point she thought that wouldn't come to light. I mean, there's multiple private investigators working on this, and there's so many people that have some kind of story around what happened that evening, and it's nothing. None of it is connected to stranger crime, right? It's all connected to nefarious and horrible activity.
Well, it's weird too that they all speak with such credibility. You know what I mean? Like you listen to stories and go, "Oh, that guy really does know," but then as it turns out, there are holes poked in the story.
And
Sounds like police are on the take at minimum, Gordon. I mean, they have conflict of interest, I think, because of all the stuff that they're up to. Well done, Courtney.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
That is True Crime Corner for today.
True Crime Corner, only on the Mark Thompson Show.
Courtney, we must say farewell to you, but look forward to next week.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. Courtney, everybody. Wow. Really something. Man, that was packed full of everything bad. You know?
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. You know, there's nothing like recorded applause to bring me back into the magic of the show. And we're a show that tries to cover a lot of different stuff, not just politics, but obviously it's the political season, so we do default to politics a bit. And I guess Kim has just made me aware of a new poll that is really bad news for the Republicans, who are already having kind of a choppy week, but in the last week, I mean. But according to this poll, Republicans are losing 3 Senate races. Is that right?
Yeah, they're losing in the polls. They're down. The Republican Senate candidates are down in 3 states. The Democrats defending seats in Republican-leaning Montana and Ohio, and battling for victory in Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. But they had this new poll released today by the Independent Center that found Democrats are actually favored in the Senate races in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So we'll see.
This is huge because I'll remind you that Democrats, as Kim just mentioned, but I mean, maybe there's a lot going by, you might have missed it. Essentially, Democrats are defending a lot of seats. So there are problems with holding on to the Senate in that kind of situation. So, and of course, with 51 seats, including, 4 independents who caucus with the Democrats. And you saw that thing about Lisa Murkowski maybe caucusing with the Democrats too. I mean, so these are very interesting things that could affect the Senate. But it is thought, at least traditionally to this point, that Democrats could take the House and may lose the Senate, down to a 50-50 or even worse. So the GOP needs to flip only 1 or 2 seats to win a majority, depending on who wins the presidential races, because the vice president, of course, is a tie-breaking vote in the Senate. But the Joe Manchin seat, they should win that, right? That's 1 in West Virginia. And Democrats, again, Montana, Ohio, Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. But because of this new polling, it is very possible, thank you for pointing it out, Kim, that it may be closer. They surveyed 500 voters in each state from August 8th to 11th. Margin of error plus or minus 4.38 points in each state. So
I've been watching this Wisconsin Senate race, and that's where Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin is running against this multimillionaire. His name is Eric Hovde. So you would think he has all this money to just dump into it. But I think Democrats knew that, so they've been outspending him. It looks like she's got a 9-point lead over him, 50 to 41%.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really impressive. Yeah, and that's an important state too, Wisconsin. I mean, it could be a bellwether.
During these rallies, I've heard Vice President Kamala Harris say, if you give me a Democratic Senate and House, I will sign a law codifying the right to, for reproductive rights and the right to have an abortion into law. So for many women, these races are almost as important as the presidential race.
Sure. Absolutely right. And you're so right to bring the issue back to that, because that is the issue within the overall issue. I mean, this is an animating aspect to getting the vote out, and women are very much a part of things. It's not just something that affects women, but it's something that women feel aggrieved by, and they're right to feel aggrieved by it. Yep. So, wow, really fascinating. If you didn't already think Mark was kind of a big deal, go ahead and try to schedule an earthquake during your YouTube show. Big shout out, Dave.
Big shout out.
Thank you for the $5 super chat. Yeah. Well, we kept going. I mean, to be fair, it was not really a super rock and roller, but it does get your attention. Yeah. Doug Koch, $5 super sticker. What up, Doug?
Big shout out.
Thank you. Thank you for all the ways you support this show, everybody. Project 2025 targets the XXX industry. Save XXX, says No Contendo.
Big shout out.
He wants his XXX movies or videos or whatever they are. This ridiculous bronze medal ceremony, says Luis, would never happen to the Mark Thompson show because it's always gold. Come on. I love a little shameless kissing up. Thank you, Luis.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Scott Rittenberg. How about it, Scott Rittenberg? Let me get over here so I can read it. I'm sorry. There's something on my screen. For some reason, I can't.
He says, this just in, Harris Walls use natural intelligence to sway voters, and those are Olympic rings because ain't no hole in a disc, bro.
Come on, bro. Yeah, big shout out.
Big shout out.
That's right. Natural intelligence. What an idea. That AI thing, what a crazy thing to mention.
Wild.
If you're Trump. Just so silly. How does Trump serve two masters? Well, we already answered that question.
Big shout out.
So when you're a politician, you can serve multiple masters. DOJ should accept the case, allow him to bury himself during the deposition. The evidence will open a new case in D.C. with a separate Judge Chutkan. That's on No Contendo, $5 super chat. Let me tell you what that's in relation to. That's in relation to the lawsuit that Trump is talking about bringing against the DOJ for $100 million for the raiding of his Mar-a-Lago compound. I'm with you. Take the suit. It's, another waste of government time and money. But, again, the details of the jacking of those documents are really bad. And if I were Trump, I'd want to get past them, not focus on them. The uprights, the Mark Thompson show is great. Many people are saying this bigly.
Big shout out.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, thank you, the uprights. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Yeah, it's there are a lot of people saying it. What can one say? Where are my Christians? Come on.
My beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
I only like people that like me.
Well, I can understand that. That's a fair way to put it. And I don't know. Look, what did Trump say about AI? Trump said that the crowd size that we see on Kamala Harris's videos and various postings is all AI generated. She doesn't actually have crowds that big. That's what he said. Thank you guys for another great show. On my birthday, Max the Cat.
Big shout out.
How about it, Max the Cat?
Woohoo!
Yeah, you get the balloons from... But remember, on your birthday, Max the Cat, don't even play.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Yeah, don't even play.
Don't even play.
No.
Happy birthday.
That's very cool. Max the Cat. Love it. I can't believe our show is winding down, but I think it is. Tony, do you have anything for me, or do I... Sometimes you'll...
There's stuff we didn't get to, but that's for tomorrow.
No, I know.
You sent me a
We'll
lot of
move it
stuff,
tomorrow.
We're good.
I do have important...
The Mark Thompson Show.
So, we have this week a very interesting week ahead. And again, happy birthday to Max the Cat. The week ahead will be Kim hosting the show, but I have some really solid segments I've left behind, one of which is with a Georgia prospective legislator who is running for the Georgia 7th seat in Congress. And we talk in very blunt terms about the way in which Georgia gerrymanders like crazy, but they've taken to high art, has the state of Georgia, disenfranchisement of voters. So I have that conversation with the guy who's actually in the belly of the beast. He is running for Congress in Georgia. That will air, I don't know whether it airs tomorrow or Wednesday, but soon. And then, of course, all your regulars, David K. Johnston tomorrow and more.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
So Kim will rock the show. She's doing the after party now.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
But we're out of time for now. So much to do this week. Thanks, everybody. Till next time. Bye-bye.